Welcome to TV Recaps. Today I will be recapping a psychological thriller. A charming book enthusiast with a troubled childhood falls in love with the woman of his dreams and develops a dangerous and unhealthy obsession for her. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for our channel. Please sit tight and enjoy the recap of the TV show, You, Season 1. Oh, and of course, spoilers ahead. The show begins in a bookstore in New York where Joe Goldberg, the bookstore manager, meets Guinevere Beck, an aspiring writer and graduate student in literature. They have a slightly flirtatious encounter, which marks the start of Joe's unhealthy obsession for her. After a quick internet search, he finds out where Beck lives and begins spying on her from across the street. Joe soon discovers her love interest Benji, a trust fund kid and womanizer who she occasionally hooks up with. Joe sneaks into her apartment while she is out, steals her underwear, and stalks her to a bar where she meets her friends, Lynn, Annika, and Peach for a drink. Beck leaves the bar drunk and falls onto the subway tracks. Joe witnesses this happening and saves her from the oncoming train. He drops her off at her place but steals her phone, giving him full access to her new phone through cloud. Next day, Beck stops by the bookstore to thank him, and Joe asks her out. She happily agrees. However, there remains an obstacle between them, Benji. Joe lures him to the basement of his bookstore, knocks him out with a mallet, and imprisons him in a plexiglass book vault. In a flashback, a young Joe is locked up in the book vault as punishment by Mooney, a father figure in his life and the owner of the bookstore. Mooney would only release him after he has showed remorse for his actions. In the present, Joe decides Benji needs to be punished and gives him coffee laced with peanut oil, which kills him due to his severe peanut allergy. With Benji gone, Joe's date with Beck goes well, but he remains in the friend zone. Meanwhile, Professor Leahy, Beck's thesis advisor, has been making advances on her. After getting rejected, he threatens to release Beck from her teaching position, which she needs to make rent. Beck heeds Joe's advice and turns the tables on Professor Leahy, threatening to expose his sexual harassment of her and 6 other women. In exchange for Beck's silence, he transfers her to another advisor. Beck is grateful for Joe's help and kisses him for the first time. Their relationship becomes more serious. However, Beck is still sleeping around with other guys. Joe is determined to advance their relationship and has a heartfelt conversation with Beck, where she opens up about her late father who overdosed on drugs. They proceed to get intimate but is rudely interrupted by Peach, Beck's rich and entitled best friend. She demands Beck takes her to a hospital to be treated for a chronic ailment. At the hospital, Peach expresses strong disapproval of Joe that he is too poor to support Beck. She disagrees and leaves. Sometime later, Joe shows Beck the collection of rare books in the basement vault. He explains that he shares a connection with books he can't find anywhere else. Joe's passionate speech wins over Beck's heart and she invites him over to her place where they finally have sex. Unfortunately, Joe gets too excited and finishes in 8 seconds. Next morning, Beck messages all her friends about the disappointing sex, which Joe sees via her old phone. She has also made weekend plans with someone called the Captain. A jealous Joe follows her to a Charles Dickens festival and soon learns that the man she is meeting is her supposedly dead father, Edward. Joe finds out that he had survived the drug overdose, overcame his drug addiction, and started a new life with another divorcee and her 2 kids. Beck finds out from Peach that Joe is also at the festival, which forces him to reveal himself to Beck, explaining that he is there to surprise her. They go to lunch with Edward and his new family, but mid-lunch, Beck explodes at her overly critical stepmother and storms off. Beck explains to Joe that she feels abandoned by her father who has become a completely different person with a new family. Back at home, Beck takes Joe's advice and channels her feelings about her father into her writing, which receives glowing reviews from her colleagues. Beck visits Joe at his apartment and they have sex again. This time much to Beck's satisfaction. After becoming a couple, Joe starts joining Beck and her friends for girls' night, where he frequently clashes with Peach. Realizing Beck is looking for writing offers, Peach introduces her to Roger, a famous literary agent. Sadly, neither of them has any intention of helping Beck and this is just a ploy to get her to quit her graduate program. Beck finds out the truth from Roger and confronts Peach for sabotaging her career, ending their friendship. Desperate, Peach fakes a suicide attempt to regain Beck's love and steals her away from Joe. He sees through Peach's lies and discovers she has been secretly infatuated with Beck since college. To save their relationship, Joe secretly follows Peach on her morning run and hits her over the head with a rock. The plan backfires when she survives the attack and gets even more attention from Beck. Back at Joe's apartment, he is neighbor to a single mother, Claudia, and her son, Paco. Claudia's boyfriend, Ron, physically abuses her. To protect his mother, Paco drugs Ron with sleeping pills, almost killing him. Joe successfully revives Ron, who beats him half to death out of anger. Claudia breaks up with Ron and is grateful to Joe for his help. Sometime later, Peach takes a short trip with Beck to the Salinger family estate in Greenwich. Unbeknownst to Beck, Joe has secretly followed her to the estate and spies on her while hiding in the house. Peach invites Raj, Beck's old friend, over. They all take drugs and Peach attempts to initiate a threesome. However, Beck turns down her advances and leaves the room. Next morning, Beck confronts Peach about having feelings for her, to which she denies. Beck turns down her offer to fly to Paris with her because she is not willing to leave Joe and her life in New York behind. She Ubers home, leaving Peach devastated. Shortly after, Peach finds out Joe has broken into the house and pulls a gun on him. Joe threatens to send her a stash of naked Beck photos to her friends if she hurts him. While Peach is distracted, Joe makes a run for it but gets shot. Peach dies from the altercation and Joe disguises her death as a suicide. Beck and Joe's relationship improves without Peach's interference. However, this does not last, and Beck becomes increasingly distant and secretive, hiding messages on her phone. Joe discovers that Beck, to cope with Peach's death, has been making frequent visits to a therapist, Dr. Nikki, and suspects she has been sleeping with him. To confirm his suspicions, Joe follows Beck on one of her appointments, but gets caught red-handed. Beck breaks up with him for betraying her trust. Joe is heartbroken. He breaks into Dr. Nikki's office and listens to one of Beck's therapy sessions on his computer. Joe realizes that Beck is not having an affair with Dr. Nikki and just needs time alone to work on herself. After apologizing, Joe lets her go. 3 months has passed. Joe is now in a new relationship with Karen, Claudia's friend, and Beck's article about Peach's death has landed her a book deal. After a chance encounter at a food truck, Beck begins to miss Joe and texts him. They start flirting with each other over text. Joe returns home to find Claudia passed out after taking drugs and Karen is taking care of her. He brings Claudia to the plexiglass vault at his bookstore, where she can overcome her drug addiction and isolation. While Karen is occupied with Claudia, Joe and Beck secretly meet and have sex, rekindling the passion of their past relationship. A tearful Beck admits to Joe that she now knows how good he was for her. Joe breaks up with Karen and gets back together with Beck. Meanwhile, Claudia has successfully overcome her addiction, but gets back together with Ron, his abusive ex-boyfriend. Paco blames Joe for Ron's return. One night, Joe is jolted awake by a nightmare about Candace, his ex-girlfriend, and shouts out her name. In a flashback, Candace cheats on him with Elijah, her agent. During a confrontation with Elijah, Joe impulsively pushes him to his death from a bridge. A frightened Joe comes to Mooney for advice, who tells him that some people deserve to die. After hearing Candace's name that night, Beck begins her own investigation into what happened between them, suspecting Joe might have killed her. When her efforts lead to a dead end, Beck confronts Joe. He shows Beck her new Instagram account, registered under a different name, alleviating any suspicions Beck might have had. Later, Joe discovers that Beck has been having an affair with Dr. Nikki for months and has been gaslighting him the entire time.
Why? I've never loved anyone the way that I love you. I didn't think that I could have it.
Elated that his love is reciprocated, he forgives her. Unfortunately, the worst is not over as Beck has found his secret box in the bathroom ceiling, which contains personal items from his victims, Benji and Peach. Beck is horrified and tries to escape. Joe realizes she has discovered his darkest secret and locks her up in the book vault. Joe comes clean about the murder of Benji and Peach and explains that he only killed them because of his love for her. Beck breaks down crying and is terrified of Joe for what he has done. Joe places a typewriter in the vault and encourages Beck to write, hoping it would help her gain a different perspective. Meanwhile, Claudia ends up in the hospital after Ron's abuse. Paco, in a fit of rage, hits Ron with a bat. He chases after Paco but is intercepted by Joe, who kills him to protect Paco. After getting rid of his body, Joe returns to the vault to find out Beck has written up a story framing Dr. Nikki for Joe's crimes as a way out for both of them. Convinced that she has had a change of heart, Joe enters the vault and kisses her. Beck stabs him and locks him in, revealing that it was all just an act to escape the vault. Unbeknownst to Beck, Joe has hidden a key inside the vault, frees himself and kills her before she could escape the basement. Months later, Beck's story, which made #1 New York Times bestseller, was used to frame Dr. Nikki for her murder. With Ron gone, Claudia and Paco are moving to California for a fresh start. As Joe is mulling over the loss of Beck, a woman walks in the bookstore and catches his attention. Joe comes face to face with the mystery woman, who is revealed to be Candace.
I think we have some unfinished business to talk about.
The end. Please stay tuned for the next TV recap. Comment below on what you liked or disliked about our video. Thank you for watching.